G'day and welcome to the show. Last week we met some of Australia's huge variety of skinks and witnessed some intimate moments in their lives. This week we'll be meeting another numerous and very successful group of lizards, the small dragons. Later we'll also be meeting some of Australia's most fascinating geckos. Here in the Tanami Desert in the Northern Territory, the spinifex grass stretches as far as the eye can see. It's hot and dry and may not have rained for years. Yet it's far from lifeless. All one has to do is stroll through the grass to see literally hundreds of small ctenophorous dragons darting between the clumps. Australia's best known small dragon is the central netted dragon, Ctenophorus nucalus. It is also the most widespread and probably the most suited to captivity. In fact, it makes a great pet. In some parts of Central Australia, this small lizard can be found living in huge concentrations. In fact, you really wonder how they can all be finding enough food. Southwestern Queensland is one such place, where clearing for roads has left small piles of rocks along the edge of the roadway. Perching on top of almost every one is a central netted dragon, and where rocks are not available, they will make use of termite mounds. In captivity, female central netted dragons will produce 2 or possibly even 3 clutches of eggs over a summer. A gravid female will dig a depression and then lay 3 or 4 huge eggs. To artificially hatch them, they should be removed, placed in a vermiculite medium, and then incubated at 30 degrees Celsius. After 2 months, they will begin to hatch. They will slash the shell from the inside with their egg tooth, pop their heads out, and then remain there for up to a day while they absorb the last of their yolk sacs. Hatchling central netted dragons are small, but they will grow fast on a diet of small crickets and roaches. As they grow, they can be weaned onto frozen crickets, and they will also develop an increasing appetite for greens. But plant matter should not form more than about 15 to 20% of their diet. Of course, not all small dragons live in Australia's deserts. At the other end of the spectrum, and living in wet temperate rainforests such as this one, is the southern angle-headed dragon. Looking like a small version of the Boyd's forest dragon, to which it's closely related, this specimen appears exactly as it was found in the forest. Angleheads vary in colour from brownish to a very attractive green such as this. Last week we met Gold Coast vet and lizard breeder Danny Brown. This week he joins us again.
Okay. This is a pair of Jackie dragons. This is your male on this side. He's got the slightly larger crest. Males also tend to have this unbroken pattern on their back. Females have got a smaller crest and this blotchy effect. She's gravid at the moment. She's got a big belly full of eggs. You can see the little egg bulges in each of these spots here. Relatively easy species to keep in captivity, breed quite readily, and yeah, quite active little fellas. Very good beginner species, quite a nice little dragon, very nice temperament, will quite commonly display in captivity. Usually a lot paler in colour than this. These guys are not happy with being cold and wet at the moment. But yeah, quite an attractive little species when they warm up, and will readily breed in captivity.
Gravid female Jackie dragons will produce about 6 eggs in early summer. In captivity, they may scatter their eggs about the enclosure. The keeper should keep a close eye and rescue them before they begin to dry up. After about 2 months of incubation, they will begin to hatch. When handled, newly hatched Jackie dragons may pretend to be dead. This is a defense strategy that makes them seem less attractive as a meal to potential predators. Mountain dragons also make good lizard pets for beginners. They are similar in care and feeding requirements to Jackie dragons, but can tolerate lower temperatures. Hatchling mountain dragons are tiny, and as with any small dragon, great care should be taken when handling them.
This little fella here is Tympanocryptus cephalus. This is an adult, one of your smallest Australian dragon species, and also these are called your pebble mimicking dragons. That's a little female with a belly full of eggs. For such a surprisingly small species, they lay very large clutches of eggs. Up to 8 is possible. And the hatchlings, when they come out, are not much bigger than a large blowfly. You feed them 2 or 3 pinhead crickets and they're full. This little fella here is a central military dragon, one of your Ctenophorus group. Males in these are generally very colourful. They've got these big black chest patches and quite colourful body. They're in the same family as things like painted dragons. Relatively uncommon in captivity. There's a bit of a misconception that they're very short-lived. In reality, they live 4, 5, 6 years in captivity quite well, but most people thinking that they only live for 1 or 2 years tend to not keep them. They're referred to in most of the texts on wild specimens as annual species. Most of that is basically because obviously it's a lot harder to get through various droughts and that in the wild. So yes, in the wild they're very short-lived. They also taste good, so predators tend to thrive on these sorts of lizards. But yeah, in captivity, small ones like this, 4 to 6 years is okay. Larger species like central netted, 7 to 8 years is quite achievable. This is a live food system I use for a lot of my small dragons. This is basically just a plastic tub or a bucket in the ground with the bottom cut out, a wire mesh frame, and then that is filled with pineapples and mangoes and things like that to attract these ferment flies or fruit flies. There's a few different species, most of them are Drosophila type flies. And when it's nice and sunny and the flies are swarming, the small dragons just sit around the edge of the container and get themselves a nice free food supply. And these flies are generally available sort of 9 months of the year, and from a nutrition point of view quite good. Very high calcium levels actually. And yeah, they're free of charge.